How's it going, everyone? This is Co-Ops Agent Ked speaking, and welcome to the next 5-minute review, more or less, of a game called Resident Evil 7, also known as Biohazard 7. Resident Evil 7 is fear and isolation seep through the walls of an abandoned southern farmhouse. 7 marks a new beginning of survival horror with the isolation view of the visceral new first-person perspective. So what that means is the Resident Evil franchise has gone from basically a third-person gameplay where the camera is behind your back and you can see your character move and shoot and its surroundings and whatnot. Resident Evil 7 actually does first-person view again, where now you can only see basically the gun in front of your hands and obviously whatever else is in front of you but never behind you, which is really interesting. When it comes to that in general, I would say this did not put me off whatsoever. It actually made the game just as much fun as any other Resident Evil game in general, which I thoroughly enjoyed. The story is super intriguing to the point where you want to know what happened to the family and or how they got to the spot where they got. In general, the puzzles were actually pretty fun. Not too confusing, pretty easy to figure out how to do, but just in general, really fun to look at, really fun to deal with. And one such as myself that's not very good with puzzles, that obviously wasn't a bad thing, but can still make you feel pretty good when you can figure out what it is they want you to do without having to have too much trouble with, I guess you can say. And overall, the atmosphere of the game, of the surrounding areas that you're in, and the things that you are doing, the lore that you run around finding as you play the game is really amazing. The mechanic of the VCR that you get thrown into basically right from the get-go is really cool as to how it works. So just general overview of good things. Like, I would say it did everything right when it came to trying to do something new instead of like throwing everything for a loop and going for something totally different, I guess you can say. Like, what they did to make the franchise feel new is definitely a good thing, especially with the full first-person perspective part. On to the bad things, and there isn't really much bad to begin with when it comes to this game. It's mostly just a me thing, considering the fact that I've definitely started playing Resident Evil from the very beginning, so Resident Evil 1, and that would be no monster variation. The zombie feel definitely is scarier, I guess you can say, when it comes to having to deal with them. Not having to deal with zombies kind of felt off, especially since they're, again, not gonna say how many, but there isn't much enemy variation. So the enemies that you see is definitely scary, is definitely spooky. You never know when they're gonna come or how they're going to react, but obviously, the more you play, it's like, oh, it's this guy again. Oh, this guy again. Oh, now there's 7 of them. Like, not too much to talk about, which kind of sucks, but again, not that big of a deal. And overall, the map does not do the same thing as all the other Resident Evil games do. So, for instance, when you go into a room and the room has items in it, the map will be red, and then if you find everything in it, it'll turn blue. That does not happen with this game at all, but there is a different variation of that exact same thing placed into the game, which is a good thing. But just in general, I wasn't too keen of the map, but I mean, again, it's very small variation when it comes to me. Overall, obviously, definitely recommend you play this game if you ever get the chance. The game was released on the 23rd of January 2017. Both developer and publisher is Capcom Co. So if that affects you in any way, super good. Definitely recommend. I ended up beating the game or finishing it, just one playthrough, plus the free DLC that the game had at almost 15 hours, which is not bad, I would say. It's definitely worth the money to get and play, experience if you're so interested in. But yeah. That being said, I am done. Hopefully this review helped in any way. Definitely recommend. You should enjoy this game just as much as any other game. And if this is going to be your first Resident Evil in general, it doesn't affect the main storyline, I guess you can say, very much, if at all. You might be surprised by information here and there if you already know what the lore is when it comes to Resident Evil games, but overall, this will not affect any of the Resident Evil games. And if Resident Evil 7 is a game that you play for the first time, I definitely recommend you check all the other ones. Super fun, depending on which one you pick, obviously, but in general, the series is very good. And with that, I hope to see you on the next review, and take care.